Hi, and thank you for listening to Dream 10X Radio, where we interview people attempting to live extraordinary lives. Our twofold purpose is to both direct and inspire people bold enough to do the same. Dream 10X. Face your fears and make your life count. Hello, Dream 10X. Welcome to episode 17. Cheers. It's James Capel.
Cindy Capel.
We are cooking dinner, trying to multitask, doing a podcast, and get dinner done at the same time. For this episode, who's our sponsor this week?
Avoca Farms. And we're actually cooking the meat right now. It's a mix of Angus and Wagyu, and it is so good. Actually, for Thanksgiving dinner, we're going to be cooking a very large Wagyu sirloin. And we also got some ground beef, so we appreciate our sponsors who are feeding us. So Avoca Farms, www.avokafarm.com. It's a local farm out of Paris, Virginia. And all of the cattle are really cute and very well loved. And most of them have names. And so they're treated really well, all grass-fed, free-range, and then you are able to buy half a cow, a whole cow, or ground beef. So take a look at their website and take a bite of this delicious meat.
So we're cooking up some Angus and Wagyu ground beef right now. I'm looking forward to having this. And while we're cooking, we're going to talk a little bit about the book I read this week. It's called The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. And I really enjoyed this book. And in fact, from a leadership perspective, I think this book had a bigger impact on me from a professional career growth, leadership perspective than the first 90 days did, the book that we talked about last week. So I recommend this book. It's an easy read. It's good. It's clear. It's a little simple, but it's really clear and easy to digest, and it's got a lot of good sound bites in it, or what do you call it? They're not sound bites, but they're good
quotes.
I guess a lot of good quotable lines in here. So just talk about one of the. There's a lot of things in here that he talked about that were directly related to some of the things that we've talked about recently, and since episode, I guess, 15, when we talked about Mr. Schwartzman and the Blackstone Group and some of the things he commented on how he became successful, which sparked a little bit of a conversation between us on the importance of IQ in becoming really successful, and how, well, some people are saying, like Warren Buffett, that, well, maybe you need around a 130 IQ in order to be successful. Well, this book claims that IQ is not really relevant at all in terms of how to become successful. He says that attitude is way more important in determining your success than your IQ, than your intelligence.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah? And he calls being overly concerned about intelligence as intelligence excusitis. In other words, using your lack of intelligence as an excuse for not being successful. He says that's pretty much stupid, which I really appreciate. He said 3 ways to cure intelligence excusitis. Never underestimate your own intelligence, and never overestimate the intelligence of others. That's very, very wise. Manage your brains instead of worrying about how much IQ you've got. Number 2, remind yourself several times daily, my attitudes are more important than my intelligence. Number 3, remember that the ability to think is of greater value than the ability to memorize facts. He goes on to say, use your mind to create and develop ideas, to find new and better ways to do things. Ask yourself, am I using my mental ability to make history, or am I using it merely to record history made by others? I thought that was interesting. But he also talked about how Einstein didn't seem to worry much about historical facts or facts. He didn't worry much about facts. His brain was more geared towards data inputs and figuring things out on his own. In other words, thinking and problem solving. And so this chapter is kind of geared more towards problem solving ability and attitude, having a good attitude, believing that you can do things. And I think that the whole crux of this book is about having a positive mental image of yourself and a belief that you can do things. And that belief alone, and that inculcates a positive attitude in you, which helps drive you to achieve things that you wouldn't otherwise achieve. And he also makes the case that people who have a good attitude and a low IQ will achieve more than people who have a high IQ but a low self-esteem and a lower, a less positive attitude. Well, obviously, I think if you have a burning desire to do something, I think you have a greater chance of doing that regardless of how smart you are, what your IQ is. I don't know.
Have you met
As
people who
opposed
are
to
like
if you don't
exceedingly
have it.
positive and successful, and then met people who are really smart and not successful because they had bad attitude? Have you met people like that?
I can't say that I don't know. I can't say I know a lot of crazy successful people personally. Like, unfortunately, those aren't the circles that I run in. But so it's hard for me to say. Yeah.
Okay.
You?
So yeah, I've worked with some people who are like just ridiculous smart and cannot find their way out of a paper bag.
Now that I have
And
as well. I can say that.
Yeah, and they get frustrated with those of us who aren't as smart, and so their attitude ends up being really hard, and they're really hard to work with when you need to move forward and get something done. So I've definitely worked with those type of people.
I think it is safe to say that having a high IQ is not the whole equation for success. It could be a big part. If you have a high IQ, then you could be, you could have a big component that puts you quickly ahead of other people. But if you don't have the attitude, you don't have the right attitude, you don't have the right beliefs in yourself and the right beliefs in the system that you're interacting with, the ability to envision a future for yourself that it's hard to see. I don't think, those are all components that I think are requirements.
Yeah.
I don't think a high IQ is necessarily a requirement for success, though. But I definitely think vision and attitude are.
Yeah.
Put it that way.
I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So it's interesting. We both know people who are really smart, who probably have a high IQ, but who aren't successful because of their attitude. So that seems to be strong anecdotal evidence to suggest that IQ is not hard and fast requirement for success. Okay, so another chapter that segued nicely with some of the things that we've talked about is the chapter on goals. He talks about goals and big dreams. He says a goal is more than a dream, which I had to think about because we were thinking a dream was more than a goal. A dream is more, a goal is a subset of a dream, but he says a goal is more than a dream. It's a dream being acted upon.
So that action piece is really important.
Yeah, of course, yeah. He says a lot about the importance of taking action in this book as well. But I'm not sure I agree with that. A goal is a dream being acted upon. I think it would be more precise to say that goals being acted upon will help you reach your dreams.
Like that makes more sense to me, that the goal is a smaller step and the dream is still a really, intangible thing.
Yeah, a goal is a big intangible thing. You don't know how you're going to get to. You break it down into actionable tasks or objectives, which are goals.
Yeah.
And achieving all of those goals in sum help you reach your dream.
Yeah.
Is the way I look at it.
I totally agree with you on that.
But that's not quite what he says here, so I was a little confused by that. But intriguing nonetheless.
Yeah. Well, it's all semantics, really.
He says goals are as essential to success as air is to life. No one ever stumbles into success without a goal. No one ever lives without air. Get a clear fix on where you want to go. All very clear, good advice, I think. The important thing is not where you were or where you are, but where you want to go. Having that vision of where you want to go is very important. And it seems common sense, right? Having a vision of where you want to go is very important, but it's so hard to come up with a vision.
Mm-hmm,
A lot of people can't even, that's step one.
Yeah.
Like, how do I come up, how do I set a, if I can't, some people have a hard time seeing beyond their current reality.
Okay, so what's the difference
including
between vision
myself.
and goal? I mean, what's the difference between vision and dream?
It's the same thing in my mind. Like,
Okay.
it's this, you have an imaginary state that you want to arrive at some point in the future. And
But getting
that's
from
a
A
dream.
to Z
That's
is
your dream.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how to get there. So that's another thing is how do you break down these huge, the bigger the dream, the harder it is to figure out how you're going to get there.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
And what you need to do to get there. But in this chapter, he admonishes the reader to, this is not the way I usually talk, but I'm trying to sound learned through my reading, but he encourages the reader to think about how to achieve concrete ways to achieve your dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And that goals are important because they set a stake in the sand and they give you a timeline and they provide motivation for you to achieve these small objectives that will all one day add up to achieving your big dream. So I really like that. And he also encourages you, the reader, to plan 10 years ahead. So this is something I've been doing for a number of years. And so I was glad to just have that thought reinforced by reading this. He says we can and should plan at least 10 years ahead, both as an individual. Companies should do the same thing, 10 to 15 years. We should be looking 10 to 15 years down the horizon. Mm-hmm. What are you planning to do? What in 10 years? Where do you want to be in 10 years? Because now is the time you need to try to get there. You need to try taking steps to get there, especially with regard to retirement or whatever. Mm-hmm. That next job role you're looking to be in 10 years. What do you want to do when you get out of college? Everybody needs to be, around the college time frame. I think it's important to start thinking about your 10-year horizon. So that was good. And then another thing I underline here is like the progressive corporation, he calls them progressive corporations, those corporations that are taking action and innovative and are going places. He calls them progressive corporations, which I thought was an interesting term. Plan ahead. You are in a sense a business unit as an individual. That's my paraphrase. Your talent, skills, and abilities are your products. You want to develop your products so they command the highest possible price. Forward planning will do it. Really like those ideas. And then finally, I just wanted to spot check or spot mention 3 big things I took away from this book. And the third one is to think like a leader. And he provides some ways to encourage the reader to think like a leader. Leadership rule number 1, trade minds with the people you want to influence. So basically put yourself, it's like the golden rule again. It's treat others like you want to be treated yourself. Put yourself in the mind of the people you're leading, the people you're addressing, and try to see yourself through their eyes. That's one good tactic for leadership. Another one is to think about the human touch for a situation. How would a human handle certain things?
What does that mean?
Try not to be crass or rude or rough with people. Try to have a human touch, and again, it segues with that first one. Try to look at things and situations through the eyes of other people, not just yourself and what your own motivations are, but try to consider the motivations of others.
So it's kind of like having empathy.
Exactly. It's empathy. It's really what those first 2 things are about. And then the third thing was think progress, believe in progress, and push for progress. Think improvement in everything you do. Think improvement in everything you do. Think about how to add value to every situation. He uses that term a lot. Think about how you can add value to the things you're doing, to the organization that you work for. Think high standards in everything you do. Set a high bar. Believe in and push for progress, and you'll be a leader.
Drink a lot of water.
My dog drinking water. Over a period of time, subordinates tend to become carbon copies of their chief. The simplest way to get high-level performance is to be sure the master copy is worth duplicating.
I love that quote. Walk the talk.
Oh, here's another fourth rule for leadership. Take time out to confer with yourself and tap your supreme thinking power. I really loved this part. Basically, he encourages the reader to just stop and just think about things. Think about whatever. Write out a plan. Write out some thoughts. Whatever comes to your brain, just think about it. And that sounds like common sense, but I find myself looking at a screen for a large part of the day, thinking about, writing code and worrying about code and checking in code and building and deploying and from a software engineering perspective, but very little time taking a step back, pushing the screen away, and drawing architectural diagrams. Does this make sense? Do these things connect right? What do I need to do to make this more of a reliable overall system? And then on Sundays, I like to take a step back and think about money. Where are our finances? Where are our bills? What bills need to be paid? Or not even thinking about any of that, but just daydreaming. Like, where do I want to? What hobbies do I want to develop? Just where do I want to be in 10 years, 5 years, and what are some ways I can get there? I also like to think a lot about what am I spending money on, and how much does my life cost versus how much money I'm bringing in, and what's that net difference, and what am I doing with that net difference? And I think about that a lot. I try to think about that at least once a month, if not once a week. But it takes time to sit down with a pen and paper and present a problem to yourself or an idea to yourself and just think about it.
Us.
When he said that, stop and think about things, think about whatever your organization, what they need.
Yeah.
Whatever. It really resonated with me because it's really hard to take time to stop and think.
Yep.
Because we're constantly running.
We're always fighting fires versus.
We're constantly running from one meeting to the next.
Yep.
We've got a schedule full of meetings. It's very important to take 30 minutes out and call it meditation, call it whatever, but just to stop and let your brain think about something else other than running to the next thing for the day. To think ahead a little bit, even if it's just for a couple days in the future.
And in leadership development, that's something we strongly recommend to everybody, is to block your calendar off at least once a day for 30 minutes, and if you can do 20 minutes in the morning, 20 minutes at night, kind of thing, just to sit and reflect, start your morning with thinking and just space to think, and then end your day with reflection and reflect on the day, and then that helps you strategize for the next day.
One of the things I want to try to do more during the week, like I said, I like to, Sundays, I like to try to reflect and project. Mm-hmm. Think on the past week and then think ahead to the future.
Sure.
But I need to start doing that on more of a daily basis. Mm-hmm. And I found that the second I crack my computer open, I'm done. There's stimulus constantly. There's chat, there's email, there's tasks, there's meetings. That's
what our brain thrives on, is that immediate.
I wish one thing I don't like about myself is I don't get up early enough. Mm-hmm. I wish I could get up earlier because I go to bed so late.
Okay.
So, but I wish I could get up earlier and just take 30 minutes before I crack open that computer to think about things.
Why can't you do that now? Not necessarily get up earlier, but why can't you at least take 20, 30 minutes?
Because I feel stressed out, I'm late. I'm always get into my workspace a little bit later than what I probably should be to get the day started.
So it's your own perceptions of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if I was there a little bit earlier, and ideally, I'd get my workout in first, then have some time for reflection, and then start work. But again, I go to bed too late. So what do you think? Should I just not? It's easy to say, well, you just shouldn't go to bed so late. But how do I get everything done that I want to get done?
Well, if you look at somebody's biorhythms too, like your biorhythm, you're never been good in the mornings. Like even after rowing, you were like exhausted for most of the day. So when you look at your biorhythms, you really like come to life at night. It seems like.
Yep.
But you can't do that for sustained days in a row. Like you do it for a few days and then you crash. But when you come to light and your brain works and you're able to focus and do all these things that you want to do in the evening. So it's not a bad thing that you're not a morning person. It's your own body chemistry and how your biorhythms work. So it's okay. It's just being more intentional and productive about what you're doing. So when you're sitting down at your computer to work on one of the Alexa skills or focus on your finances or whatever, are you doing 14 other things before that? So when you sit down at your computer, are you looking at Facebook? Are you going to emails? Are you putting other tabs and doing research on other stuff that is meaningless? So it's like refocusing your time and energy. It's more energy management. Where are you putting your most energy? Is it into Facebook and Instagram, or is it really focusing on where you want to focus?
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on how to go about prioritizing things and get them done while getting sleep at the same time? Like, should I be taking Redland just to like stay up all night?
No.
Or should I be like
That's
taking
gonna kill your
some
body.
extra caffeine?
You're gonna
like
kill your body.
how do I do more? How can I do all the things I want to do?
It's about managing energy and knowing where you are the most effective, and then spending your most effective time on that really hard task. So, example for me, I suck first thing in the morning. I know from 8 to 9 o'clock in the morning, usually to 9:30, don't talk to me, give me a cup of coffee. That's when I check my emails because I don't have to think. I can just respond. If it's an email I have to think to respond, I put it in my priority list for later. And then I'll do other like kind of meaningless rote tasks. Around 12 or 1, I'm really good. I'm really sharp. So I focus on my most challenging problem then.
Well, that's basically what I'm doing, but I don't feel like I'm making quick enough progress with stuff. Maybe I should hire some VAs, hire some contractors to do some of the stuff. How do we scale? Like, how do I scale the amount of work I want to do? So,
yeah,
it's interesting.
Yeah,
Think about that a lot. I found a book on your bookshelf by Josh Waitzkin.
Yeah.
It's called, what is it called?
The Art of Learning.
The Art of Learning, and I'm wondering if that has some tools in there.
Maybe. I think it does actually. So, yeah, read it.
Okay. Well, thanks for listening to this episode, and see if I can get through another book next week we can chat about. We're going to eat dinner right now. Thanks again to Avoca Farm for sponsoring this episode. Happy Thanksgiving!
Woohoo!